about Willie Colon and that experience. How did you meet him?
Okay, so I am at this club called the Broadway Casino. This is about 1967. This is like a little over or less than a year of my getting out of the service of the Navy, and I'm working with George Guzman at the Broadway Casino, and Willie comes into the club because he's supposed to be headlining, but he comes in without his band, and he goes to the club owner and tells the club owner, there's been an incident with my timbalero, and we're just coming back from LA, and I won't be able to do this gig. I'm here to inform you of that fact. So he worked it out with the club owner, and I guess, there's nothing that could be done about that. But Willie decides to come up to the stage and watch the George Guzman Orchestra, which I'm part of. And I'm doing my thing, and we finish our set, and I'm walking off the stage, and Willie approaches me, and he says, you know what, you have some of the fastest hands I've ever seen. He said, how would you like to join my group? And I was totally shocked, really. I mean, I knew who he was, but just to have this guy come up to me, of that stature being established. By then he had El Malo, and he had The Hustler, and he had Guisando already recorded. So he had three Fania records down pat. Whereas I had done my 2 recordings with George Guzman, so I'm like, we're kind of like, neck and neck kind of deal, But I knew his reputation, was incredible. I mean, people really loved Willie Colon during the time. So the fact that he asked me that, would you like to join my band? I was kind of, in awe. I was, and I said, yeah, I would love to join your band. He says, do you have any of my albums? And the truth of the matter is, I didn't have a one.
But being from New York,
so I was straight up with him. I said, no, I don't have any of your albums, And he says, well, I'll be right back. And he left the club, and I guess he went to his car, and he went and got me the copies of the albums, and he handed them to me. He said, okay, here are the 3 albums so far that I've recorded for Fania. You need to learn all these songs by Friday. And this was a Sunday night, so I had 5 days, Monday through Friday, to learn. And during that time, I think there was at least maybe 12 tracks on an album.
Right.
So we're talking like 36 songs I had to learn within 5 days. And so I took the albums home, put on my headphones, commenced to practice, listened really hard for those 5 days. I mean, to the point that I was getting migraines. I was getting up like really early in the morning, starting at like 9 o'clock. I would go to like 6 o'clock, and sometimes even later. And I would do that for 5 days to make sure that I had these tunes down as best as I could. And the first gig that I did with Willie Colon was at this place called the Psycho Room, which was on 14th Street, Union Square in Manhattan. And I did the gig, and he had me play lots of timbal solos that night. And he was testing me out, see my stamina, see if I could hang. So he gave me a lot of timbal solos, and I passed the test. And I stayed with him for 10 years.
He's such an icon in the whole salsa, New York, Fania, Latin thing. I mean, that El Malo and some of the other things he did, again, were the soundtrack of our lives growing up in New York City. But you also mentioned somebody else that's really iconic in the music business as part of that band, Hector Lavoe.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about Hector.
Well, Hector was a really good person, but very troubled. You know, had a lot of drama in his life. Unfortunately, you know, we had a relatively good rapport, he and I, but he was more of a loner. So he didn't really socialize with the guys as much. And so there was that kind of like a distant type of relationship with him. As far as my personal feelings about Hector is, I love the guy to this very day. In fact, just, you know, talking about it's a little hard. But he was a genius, you know, and I can only speak for myself, you know, but I would consider him one of the best ever in the salsa world, you know, in music, in the world of music in general. He was very creative. He was spontaneous, which was a real big plus for him, because he would be able to get the audience's attention just by saying a couple of words, you know. And in fact, I was telling this joke to a couple of guys the other day. I said, you know, there's one line that Hector said, which to this very day I'll always love. And we were playing at a club called the Corso on 86th Street. And he said to the people, to the audience during one of our intervals between songs, he says, "Ustedes saben cuáles son los santos del hambre? You know, do you know who the saints of hunger are, right?" And you know, of course, everybody stayed silent, waiting for his answer. He says, "Pues son sandwiche y sancocho." So, you know, I mean, just tore up the house. You know? Yeah, sandwiche y sancocho. So,
well, he always had in his songs and his pregones, you know, the santos and santeria, and
right,
you know, the religious side of the music was a big deal.
Well, the band itself, you know, working with Milton Cardona, right, and Jose Manuel Jr. We were all involved in santeria in one way or another. Even, you know, Willie doesn't talk about it much, you know, and but there was that definitely that spiritual aspect, you know, to the group, you know, and we had, you know, respect for santeria, and you know, I think just for religion in general, you know, that was because when I think back, I mean, we were so blessed, if you will, right? You know, to have all this good fortune, you know, all these blessings come our way. Because I mean, we hit it big time, you know.
Is there any day or event, concert where you realized, man, this is it. I've made it. I'm with one of the hottest bands ever right now.
Oh yeah. There were many you know, instances. One was playing Carnegie Hall. We played Carnegie Hall. We played Carnegie Hall with we opened up for Eddie Palmieri and a Gran Combo.
Wow.
Yeah, that was an incredible concert. I took my folks, my parents to see that. Yeah, Carnegie Hall. It was Willie Colon, Eddie Palmieri, and a Gran Combo.
Now, you know, you're Puerto Rican from New York, and so am I. So, and of that era. So, getting to Carnegie Hall for anybody is a pretty big deal.
Oh, that was.
But Puerto Ricans at Carnegie Hall, that must have been a mind blower.
It was. I'm going to share with you a little story about that Carnegie Hall gig. you know how bands, they have their outfits, right? And so we, the Willie Colon band, we dress up all in white. Speaking of Santeria, and right, so we dressed up as in Santeria, what they call Iyabo, you know, where you do like a year where you're dressed in white. So we're all dressed in white. We finish our set. The lights go down. Eddie Palmieri is setting up. Right? You can't really see what's going on. The lights come on, and Palmieri's band, they look like they just came from Orchard Beach. They had sandals, Bermuda shorts, tropical shirts. I mean, these guys, it was so
a contrast.
such a contrast, such an opposite of how we would dress. And after they finished, but of course, you know, Palmieri, these guys, it doesn't matter what they're wearing. You know, they blasted out there, and everybody was loving it. But and then after they finished their set, then El Gran Combo came on. They had these beautiful, like, kind of pink tuxedos with burgundy lapels, and it was like just really, you know, they were styling. El Gran Combo is always, you know, one that they like their presentations to be pristine.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, but another I would say event that really hit me when I felt that I had really succeeded in this, what I would call, you know, peaking at that time, was when we did a reunion concert at Madison Square Garden, and there was about close to 19,000 people, and they gave me a standing ovation. I was doing a timbal solo for Timbalero, and yeah, that was like, I'll never forget that. That was really an amazing feeling, you know, and very very emotional for me. Yeah.
That's great. Well, you deserve it. Actually, it's funny you should mention Timbalero. I was at your 20th anniversary of your band Masacote, and I took that song as the clip that I'm hoping to support this particular. Because you took, you know, the longest solo I've ever seen on timbales, and I think you did it for a reason. You know, you're the timbalero. You recorded that song.
Yeah, that song was composed by Willie and Hector, kind of as a the word's not correct. Joke is not the right way, but a satirical statement to the way I play, because I'm kind of a, you know, people say you're a really serious player, you know. I don't smile too much, I don't move too much, you know. So Willie and Hector, they kind of captured that in that tune. Yeah, if you listen to the lyrics,
down to the Spanish
exactly, the paso doble.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah.
So here you are playing with what is at the time kind of one of the top 3, top 4 dance bands in the world playing this kind of music. And being based in New York, you were involved in all kinds of things. How did that evolve to be the bigger kind of Fania experience? Or was that just Willie and everybody was invited? Do you see Fania as a separate época, or is it just a continuation of your days with Willie Colon?
Well, I see it as a phase in my life, you know, because you know, some people have mentioned to me, well, are you living in the shadows of Fania Records, you know? And so this is, you know, everybody's
fair question.
Yeah, are you living in the shadows of Fania? And I'm like, I'm doing what I know to do best, you know. I'm a drummer from a little kid all the way to this very day, and Fania was a phase in my life. I find this now 20 years later with my group Masacote, this is another phase in my life. You know, so Fania was what it was at the time. You know, there were they were great experiences. One other experience, if I might add, is there was a call from some people from Martinique, and they were putting on a dance, a big dance in Paris. And they called Fania and asked Fania if Johnny Pacheco could come and play, do this gig. It turns out that Johnny Pacheco ended up with some really bad bug. He had the flu, something, he couldn't make the trip. So the people who were hiring said, how about Willie Colon and Hector Lavoe? And we went to Paris. We were the first salsa band in New York to go to Paris, France. And that was major. We were there for 10 days. It was just quite a trip, and it made it, I think that again helped us to to elevate to the next level. This is a band that first of all was somewhat controversial because we had this bad boy image.
Yeah, a lot of the El Malo and all that we're talking about, drug dealing and
Right,
the criminal side of the world.
Exactly, the whole deal. That kind of image.
Tofetes.
Which again was
That was New York
basically
at the time.
a marketing
Yeah.
tool. It wasn't that. We did that La Gran Fuga, wanted by the FBI, with the poster that got us into a lot of trouble. People were calling in the FBI, and the FBI called Fania and said, "You need to stop printing those posters." They stopped us from printing the posters.
Wow.
Yeah. So anybody that's got a poster now, that's like a collector's item. Yeah. But yeah, that was kind of, we were constantly finding ways to get people's attention, and of course there was a great group of composers like Tite Cure Alonso, who were major contributors to the success of the Willie Colon band. It was Willie and Hector and the rest of the guys, but there were other people, Marty Scheller, Jose Febles, Johnny Ortiz. There were a lot of people involved in the success of the Willie Colon band. I mean, the songs that we would be doing 3 albums a year. Every 4 months we would be releasing an album, which is almost unheard of now.
Today, that's unheard of.
Yeah.
So here you are in New York. You're with the Fania All Stars with Willie Colon. You're performing. You're kind of at the peak of your career.
Mm-hmm.
But I met you out here in California, and a little like Armando Peraza and some of the other folks that came out west. You're considered, now a kind of Western icon. What made you move out here?
Basically, I needed a change. I really got tired of the Big Apple. I was going through a lot of, personal things myself, which was not good for me, and my cousin Rosie, who lives out here in Hayward, was trying to convince me for 4 years. This is no exaggeration. We would talk on the phone and she'd say to me, "Lou, you need to come out here." She said, "We'll take care of you. We'll give you shelter." And I have a bunch of my cousins. My aunt still is out here. My aunt is 92 now. My sister, my mom's sister. And so Rosie was like, "Lou, you should come out here. If you're tired of New York, give it a try." And so in 1984, I packed up whatever I could. My dad got me a one-way ticket, put some cash in my pocket, and I'll never forget this. My dad says, "Follow your heart."